Okay. Now let's look at the technology that we will be using. Okay, so here are some of the technology that's normally used in a data analytics project. So data analytics project, you have data coming in from various sources, right? So bringing data into a Python platform, okay, it has lots of functions, okay, and one of the neat functions is the SQL integration. So we will go through that. So you can use SQL commands to pull data from a database server. Okay, and then you have regular functions for reading Excel data and so on. So you have a bunch of functionality related to bringing in data. Okay, so you need working knowledge of SQL. So we'll use MySQL, and some of you may have already had in your database class. Have you? No, you have not. You have not had the database class yet. Okay. Well, I'll let you know how to do the SQL part, which is not. We are not going to be developing databases. We're going to bring data from a database. So that's a small part of database management. Okay, so we'll do that, and then visualization. This is where you study the data, understand the data, examine each variable, understand what it has, whether there are any problems, whether there are any missing values, how many different categories there are, is there a way to combine categories into smaller categories, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what we use visualization for. So visualization can be used in two different ways. Visualization can be an end in itself. Okay, so you do a visualization project and that's it. That tells you things about the variable and the situation and the data, right? Or you can use the visualization to understand data as part of your data analytics project. So that's what we are interested in. We are not going to get into either of them, but this is important piece of technology that you need to have familiarity with. And again, 4260 is your visualization class where Tableau and Power BI are taught, hopefully. Okay. So you will learn Tableau and Power BI in not here in this class, but in 4260. Okay. And then the data preparation and analytics itself, there are lots of platforms. R, Python are very popular, and SAS is another one, SPSS, plenty of others. The thing about R and Python is that they are open source, okay, and you have lots and lots of libraries that are available, and you can just about do any kind of data analysis project using R or Python. R is specifically for statistical analysis, so it's relatively little simpler, more direct, but it can only do statistics or statistical analysis. Whereas Python is more generalized language platform. It can do lots of different things, and including analytics. Okay, and then artificial intelligence platforms where we have data, dynamic data that come in, and then you set up. And there are some tools, user-friendly tools that are available in Amazon and Google and Microsoft. These are the examples where you set up a machine learning module or machine learning model without knowing very much about machine learning, and you may end up messing things up, but it's available. And if you know what you're doing, then these are very powerful platforms to develop models. So these are the kinds of technologies that we will be using only Python, and our focus is going to be on data preparation. Okay, so Python Why Python? Python is an interpreted, interactive, object-oriented programming language. Wow. Okay, so it incorporates modules, exceptions, dynamic typing, very high-level dynamic data types of classes. Okay, that's good. This is just a definition that I borrowed from the Python Software Foundation FAQ. Python is an interpreter, so that means it is, okay, so if you have a highly developed language like C++, you write the code and then you have to convert the code into an executable and then execute that code and it does whatever it's supposed to do. Whereas an interpreter, you don't have that intermediate part. You don't have to convert it into an executable. So this interpreter is where you write a line of code and then you execute that line of code right then and there. Okay, instead of writing an entire program, starting from if you write if you write a Fortran program, for example, you need to bring in data, do all the analysis, and all of that you have to write, and then convert it into an exe file and then run it. Whereas here, you can run line by line code. Okay. So it is like, if you will, an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Except that in Excel spreadsheet you have mouse point and click for commands. Okay. So you don't have that here, not point and click. Okay. Well, there are platforms, or workbenches for Python, which does that. But okay, but what we're going to be using, there is no point and click for the features or for the functions of Python. So in Excel, if you want to do a sum, then you do equal to sum and then do the the range thing. Then you get the sum in a cell, right? Whereas in Python, you still do the same thing. You do sum, but you don't click and show the range. Instead, you give the element, or you will have a name associated with the array of data. So you say sum that array of the name of that array, then it will go and sum that. So that's the kind of you need to look at Python as though it is Excel. Okay, a little more difficult than Excel because you can't just go click and point and click is not there. But it is fundamentally at the basic level it is the same thing, because in Excel there are some simple things that sum and stuff like that. Then you have XLOOKUP, and then you have filter, and then you have match, and there are so many functions that are there. You need to know how to use those functions, right, in Excel. The same thing in Python. You have lots and lots of functions. You need to know what those functions are and how to use it. That's it. That's Python. So don't think of it as coding, because coding, if you really think about what coding is when you have a regular programming language where you write the code and then compile the code into an executable, and then you run the executable, and on and on. Okay, that's not what we're going to do. So we are not, in this class, we are not doing what one would call, what a computer science person would call coding. If we say that this is coding, they'll laugh. Okay, this is not coding. This is more like using the functions that are available in Python. And the thing is, there is lots and lots of libraries. Lots of people have written lots of libraries, and those libraries are the ones that give us power. Okay, and there are, we're going to be looking at 3 of them mainly, maybe 4. Okay, NumPy, Pandas, so for data, and then we have Matplotlib for visualization, creating charts, and then we have sklearn for running models. So these are the libraries that we will be looking at. Okay. Okay. So why Python? So extremely versatile with multiple uses. So it can do data analysis, data mining. It can do artificial intelligence. It can do web, set up websites. Okay, graphics. And the functionality is really very broad. Fastest growing programming language. Okay, so in high demand for jobs. Okay, so here Python ranks number 2 job postings. Okay, so that's good. Easy to read, write, and learn. And open source packages. So this is, since it's an open source platform, so it has more than 137,000 libraries. Okay, so anything you want to do, there's probably some library out there. All you have to do is to search for it. And extremely supportive community. So you have any question that you have, anything that you get stuck on, you just do a Google search and you will find lots and lots of answers. So one of the best ways of learning is to muddle through and figure it out by ourselves. Oftentimes, of course, when you get really stuck, you need somebody to help. Of course, it's good to have somebody to fall back on. But then that's the best way to learn, to research through your question and figuring out the answer. And supportive community is no exaggeration. For both R too. I mean, Excel also. All of these software packages, you have tons and tons of helpful community available out there. So Python topics. So these are the topics that we will start out with. Python data structures, what are the different types of data that we have in Python, and then what are the programming controls. Programming controls will be like if statement, like in Excel you have if, right? So if condition blah blah blah, same thing here. And then you have do loop, for loop, and we will look at those. And then for data manipulation, there are 2 basic libraries that are extremely helpful and make our task very efficient. That's NumPy, numerical Python, and Pandas. And then for visualization, we will use matplotlib library. And for data transformations, the transformations that I talked about, we'll use sklearn library. So these are the Python topics that we will be covering. Okay. So learning objectives, okay, prepare data for analysis. Okay, so we will learn how to import data, examine and identify all the different data types, look for data errors and fix the data errors. Okay, aggregate and describe data, visualize. Okay, and so describe basic data types, use Python data structures. So these are learning objectives for data preparation. These are learning objectives for Python. So describe use of NumPy libraries, pandas, and then strings and dates. Those are special data types that need to be dealt with in a particular way. Okay, so we'll learn about those. Okay, so matplotlib visualizations. Okay, so these are the different topics that learning objectives we have. There are 2 sets of learning objectives that I've given. One is generally from the data perspective. So we'll learn how to import data, bring in data, identify data types, clean, transform, aggregate, and visualize. Okay, so these are the tasks that we will learn how to perform. And then we will do that using Python. So these are the different Python features, Python capabilities that we will be using, okay, to achieve those data oriented learning objectives. Okay.